All right, so we're back into free agency and talking about potential fits for the Detroit Lions. You guys have heard me talk about this name for the last few weeks, and I'm pretty high on this guy. And I think a lot of coaches around the NFL are going to be pretty high on him as well. And the person that we're talking about had really kind of hurt his career to start his career because of the combine. And this is the reason why I love the combine, because it's of these things right here. AJ Epinesa was a first round lock in 2020, excuse me. And then at the combine, he just had a terrible day. Terrible day running drills and ran like a 5.04 in the 40. For a defensive end, that's like 0.3 of a second too slow, or 0.2 of a second too slow to stay in the first round. So that dropped him from a late first round to a late second round pick. And we hear it quite often, but Dan and Brad, they will always say that the game tape tells you what you want to see, or everything that you want to see. The off-field interviews tell you a lot more about the player. And at the same time, though, I believe that the combine offers you something a little bit different. And I don't think I'm ever going to change my mind on that. I really don't. Yes, I believe it's largely a pajama party, but there's some things that you can see there that you may not see on tape. But let's talk about this prospect, free agent AJ Epinesa. What I'm going to start with is his former coach, Kirk Ferentz, at Iowa, said that a first-round pick should clearly stand out on the field and on film, and he believes that the 6'5", 275-pound Epinesa met that criteria. And then he had this quote. He said, "One thing that I learned in my 6 years in the NFL is a lot of mistakes get made at the combine. The most telling thing about a player is what you see on film, or what you see on the field when you are standing there." I believe in all that. I trust in all that. I really do. It's the same thing, like I said, that Dan and Brad echo as well. But in my opinion, the combine can only hurt your stock as a player prior to the draft, and rarely makes things better for you. Unless, of course, you run very well and show some things to the scouts, that they didn't pick up on the game tape. But at times, the combine has helped players jump up the board, but that is really the exception and not the rule for most GMs and scouts when they're evaluating the giant pajama party. So in AJ's case, he hurt his stock. He fell down the board as the Bills really got a steal in the second round in 2020. And I'm sure that AJ has developed nicely over the last 4 seasons being in an NFL program. And that is, kind of where I'm at with this today. And you're seeing, his transformative rise right now over the last 2 seasons, because he did need a little bit of work. He was a little bit raw still. Epinesa is an impressive free agent to me. He should be high on the Lions' radar, in my opinion, and I'll find out soon enough if he is. But he's someone that has the skill, the talent. He's a hard worker. He's humble. Great to listen to when he talks. Someone that he really has a great attitude. He performs well on the field. He's a real high character guy, and that's exactly a Dan and Brad guy. High character, high football IQ, a football player. So all the things, that the Lions like in their locker room and in their organization, AJ Epinesa is that guy. Well, that's great for all the intangible stuff. And we're going to get into some of his stats and, talk about some of the analytics of the player and what he's done over the last couple of seasons as to why you would want to go after him in free agency in 2024. Another quote about AJ Epinesa, though, former coach again, Kirk Ferentz, Iowa. He had this to say. He said, "If you're on field with a first rounder, usually you feel that," Ferentz said. "There's something different about guys that usually get drafted in the first round. And if you were playing us, I've got to think if you are an offensive coach, you've got Epinesa circled. How are you going to handle this guy? How are we going to keep him from just wreaking havoc on us? On top of that, he's a great player and just a great person. The kind of guy you want in the meeting room, and the kind of guy you want in the building, and the kind of guy you want representing your organization." So far, he's a 4-star lock, because I believe that 4 out of the 5 stars that, if Brad was to grade that way, he's hit all 4 just by this. That 5th is all the skill level, or the additional skill level, which makes you, separate yourself from the rest, in my opinion. And that's a very hard star to get, again, in my opinion. But Epinesa, he capped his 3-year college career off in a very spectacular fashion. He was named the defensive MVP at the Holiday Bowl. He finished with 2.5 sacks, 1.5 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, and Iowa crushed him 49-24. That was against the University of Southern California. But AJ is a young player on the rise. Like I said a little while ago, he had his best season, or two really, as a Buffalo Bill in 2023 and in 2022. And as I reported a few weeks ago, the Bills are in cap hell, cap purgatory, whatever you want to call it. And they need to get about $75 million cleared in order to either keep all their guys and sign the rookie class, or keep the guys that they can and sign the rookie class. In a little bit that's known about the Bills general manager, Brandon Beane, is that he really likes to keep his guys. The guys that he drafts, he likes to keep around at least for that second contract. So with that understanding of how the Bills organization kind of works, it gives me a little bit of concern that they're going to try to do everything that they can to try to keep Epinesa. I do not believe they would waste a franchise tag on a guy that, potentially is worth less than $10 million a year. So biggest concern, can they clear the cap? I'm sure they will figure out a way to do it, but I'm sure it's going to be also a little bit more challenging than what some people may think. The Bills have 4 defensive end free agents: Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson, Poona Ford, and AJ Epinesa. And with that, they also have 3 defensive tackle free agents. Looks like Tim Settle, Linval Joseph, and Daquan Jones. I do believe this, though. The Bills will try to cheap out on Epinesa, maybe offer him a 1-year, cheap deal, as I believe Daquan Jones is going to be the priority for the Bills at this point. Even though he's a little bit, older, I still believe that Daquan Jones is that guy for Buffalo as a priority. And for that reason, I think that gives the Lions an opportunity to meet with Epinesa and Epinesa test the free agency market. Maybe somebody will overpay for Epinesa. There's a few teams that have, quite a bit of cash, and they will overpay for somebody that they need. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody overpaid for Epinesa. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but if you throw the right number at this guy, I'm sure he's going to, come open arms and get ready to go to work. But maybe just the Lions, target other free agents from the Bills too. I mean, there's a possibility there, right? I mean, you've got 7 defensive line free agents, most of them on the older side. And I'm not putting Leonard Floyd in that basket because I believe that he's only about the money, per what he said 3 weeks ago. But I wouldn't put it past Brad Holmes to find talent on the Bills roster. Even though, some of these guys are rather old, like I said, in NFL years, I believe that a 1-year low cap deal for veteran leadership is not out of the question. We've lost some guys and we're going to be losing some more. And you can never have enough good, solid veteran leadership on your team. And quite honestly, I wouldn't put it past Brad to go after Daquan Jones. Maybe a 1-year, $8 million deal to help out the D-line and still possibly go after Epinesa. But Daquan is 32 years old. And as we have seen, Brad Holmes is not afraid to bring guys in over the age of 30. So do I believe, the market value, is too high for Epinesa? I don't. Here's what I think. I think that it's going to land somewhere between $5 and $7 million per year. Right now, over the cap is stating something like $5.46 million per year. Will he take a short deal? A 2-year deal? Is he looking for a 4-year deal? Those are the questions I can't answer yet. Well, let's talk about it. With a 2-year deal, I believe that the Lions could land him for right around $13.5 million, which breaks down to just under $7 million per season. On a 3-year deal, which should shrink that overall number a little bit, I think it's close to Anzalone numbers. I think that you can get him done for 3 years, 18, 19 million. Now, with all of that being said, here's what I want to tell you that's important about AJ Epinesa. Number one, he was really high on my list when he was coming out of Iowa in 2020. That may not matter to you, but it matters to me because I watched this guy. I studied his tape back then, and now I've studied it all over again, or at least the last few highlights of 23 and 22 with the Buffalo Bills. He has definitely grown nicely since he's been in the NFL. He was drafted 2nd round, pick number 54 overall. I had him as a very solid player, but still a little bit of a project back in 2020 and a lot of high upside. AJ got off to a slow start in 2020, or at least really the first 2 seasons, registering 2.5 sacks total for 2020 and 2021. And then he kind of broke out of his shell a little bit last season being 2022 with 6.5 sacks. And depending on which site you look at, he's been credited with 6.5 or 7 sacks this season. So that's a nice uptick in production. He's producing solid numbers while he's only playing, and this is the kicker, 38% of the snaps. I know it sounds nuts, right? Well, why would we want a guy that's only playing, less than 40% of the snaps? Quite literally, this guy's a rotational player off the bench. That's what he is in Buffalo's scheme. He's not a starter. He's a rotational player coming off the bench. So that's why his snap count is what it is. He's only started 4 games in 4 seasons, but he's appeared in roughly 85% of the games in every season. So he's durable. He's available. He's a hard worker, all around good guy. He's producing. He's got good production. What I can imagine though is what is the upside going to look like for him? Should the Lions bring him in and bump him up 55, 60, 65% of the snaps on the right end? And maybe he can, play both sides, but you put him opposite Aiden Hutchinson and you upgrade the defensive back room and you bring in another, DT. Maybe Broderick Martin has a good season in 2024. Don't bet on it, but let's just say that happens. AJ Epinesa is going to have great production. But more importantly, Aiden Hutchinson is going to have an opportunity to finally really show us what he's all about. That's the game plan, is getting Aiden Hutchinson to a point where he can really show the world who he is. AJ, he's someone that will help this defensive front in terms of keeping offensive lines honest and freeing up one of the ends or one of the defensive tackles, throughout every game. He'll be able to make a play and allow others to make some plays. Let me bring in the slide on AJ right now. So AJ Epinesa, according to PFF, has an 80.3 overall ranking in 2023, which is head and shoulders above just about everybody on the Detroit Lions defensive front other than Aiden Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil. So pretty solid numbers. Run defense is a little bit low, but his pass rush is pretty solid. Now, he could probably use a little bit of help in the run support, but since the Lions already have a very good defensive front in the run game, I'm not concerned about having one player join this team that maybe needs a little bit of help. And it's usually a scheme thing too. As long as he doesn't have a ton of missed tackles, which I've checked, he's not terrible. He does need a little bit of help in the tackling department too. But overall, he is a huge upgrade. So my only concerns with AJ is that he posts, a lower tackling grade than I like to see. His run defense grade is not the greatest, as you can see right here. But keep in mind, he's not getting but 38% of the snaps. So the numbers are going to be largely skewed lower than they would be higher. Vice versa, if you have a bunch of sacks, but you're only getting 38% of the snaps, it skews your numbers a little bit higher. Same thing that happened with James Houston. On the positive side, he is producing 6.5 or more sacks a season now, and has done it 2 seasons in a row, so it wasn't a fluke. He would have been second on the Detroit Lions defense this season to everybody other than Aiden Hutchinson. Aleem McNeil had 5, Alex Anzalone had 3, and Jack Campbell had 2. Here's the kicker. Charles Harris, Romeo Okwara, and Julian Okwara, who's no longer with the team, counted for a combined 5.5 sacks. So AJ Epinesa by himself had more sacks than 3 of our guys. Now, I haven't gone off and to look, at every single one of those players' snap counts, but we know Romeo and Julian didn't get a ton of airplay. If Detroit is going to, not spend a ton of money in free agency, these are the kind of guys that I believe are going to be coming to Detroit. And I believe it makes perfect sense that you bring in a couple of mid-tier guys, second contract guys that, will be able to give you some leadership, some veteran experience, production on the field, and as well as help, any rookies that are coming in. But that's the key, is that Brad Holmes is going to have to draft really well this offseason. Tonight, we'll be going live at 8:30 p.m. It is Friday, February 16th. We'll be going live at 8:30 p.m. I have, I guess, a new theory. I have come across some new information. I have dug deep into the draft and the mock drafts. I did about a dozen of them today. And I want to share with you what I have found out and what I believe to be the case for 2024. You may not like everything that you hear tonight, but let's talk about it. Phone lines are going to be open. I've got some new cords, so hopefully everything's all set. But tell me what you guys think about AJ Epinesa in the comments. feel free, go look at AJ Epinessa's highlights, on YouTube. Guy's a solid dude. He is a perfect fit on this defense, not only schematically, but his intangibles are off the charts, and it's exactly what the Detroit Lions need. If he can come in and give us 6.5 to 8 sacks a season, that's perfect. Especially, $5, $6, $7 million a year, doesn't break the bank, allows the Lions to continue to add good quality talent around him. So thank you for watching this video. I appreciate you guys. As always, you are the best sponsors and supporters that I could have and ask for. So go in pride, go Detroit Lions. You guys take care. Until the next one, bye-bye.